quite appropriate for what we're standing for in first opposition. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to outline some really practical problems with what they've been talking about, ladies and gentlemen. I have about 7 as I've left it here. The second thing I'm going to look at, ladies and gentlemen, is a real analysis of why we perform these kinds of humanitarian operations and missions. And there's 2 levels of analysis there. One is human rights and its universality. The second one is enlightened self-interest, ladies and gentlemen. The third point I want to look at, ladies and gentlemen, is like now that I've established why we go in here, so this is linked on from number 2, we're going to look at number 3, which is the best way of achieving those objectives, which I talked to you about in number 2, right? You okay so far? Great. Before I do that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to look at a few things to do with the wording of the motion and some of the stuff that came up in the first proposition. First of all, I want to know when immediate human rights abuses have been stopped. I think that he ran away from the immediate part of this definition of this motion, ladies and gentlemen. And I think that creates several problems for him. Either we do it immediately, like straight after abuses have finished, and God knows what will happen and the results will be then, ladies and gentlemen, God knows what sort of systems or stability we'll have. Or we decide when we are going to leave, ladies and gentlemen, which seems to be what we're proposing on the opposition, ladies and gentlemen, which is that we stay for a long time. Because essentially you have to ensure that the elections are going to happen, right? They're going to be fair. So we think that's a big problem you've got to deal with then, on your side of the house. Okay. Recognition. Okay, yeah, let's look at this. Oh yeah, we think that ignition of the conflict could occur, ladies and gentlemen. There are 7 reasons why I think that this could happen with this perpetual election referendum. First of all, we say that there's information asymmetry. Very often these populations don't have full access to media, they don't have full access to what's going on in the country. Very often they live in very sparse areas and very sparse villages. We think that that's hugely problematic. How do they know what's going on in order to make these decisions? Second, ladies and gentlemen, we've got poor infrastructure. How do we ensure that these elections are properly monitored? How do we ensure that the ballots are done done secretly and that they're done securely, ladies and gentlemen? We've got no analysis on that, especially since we pull out for such reasons. Third thing, ladies and gentlemen, is we need to look out for media bias. We need to ensure that we have an up and running fourth estate that is established and independent in the country. They don't care about that, they just want to get out when they're told to get out. Fourth, ladies and gentlemen, we think that often these societies have vigilante, sometimes even tribal systems of justice. We don't want to leave those in place because we think that they lead to human rights violations as well. We think that that's hugely problematic, but you just want to get out then. Fifth, ladies and gentlemen, we say that if the majority do get back into power, we see a situation where the violence could go back. We could simply get a reversal back into violence because we could get a destabilization. Because the old reasons, the old hatreds are not gone, ladies and gentlemen. They're still there, they're still within the society, and they're still implicated there. No thanks, guys. We've got to move on to the 6th one. Establishing that this is the clear will of the people is incredibly difficult to do. How on earth are you going to do this for all of the reasons that are pointed out from 1 to 5, ladies and gentlemen? We think that you need to deal with that. 7, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't have to be unanimous, and we think that this is hugely problematic. We said we have to have a majority from both communities. We simply don't think that that is sufficient, ladies and gentlemen. How do you know that you can't persuade other people to vote for you? How do you know that they simply won't lie, especially since you're moving out and leaving no systems in which to monitor this, right? And say, we'll protect you, everything's fine. Nah, now the Americans are gone, or the UN are gone, now we're not protecting you anymore. We think you need to deal with all of those practical problems which your proposition creates. We think they're hugely problematic. Now let's move on to more principal arguments, because these are fun ones. Okay, why bother going in the first place, ladies and gentlemen? We've got 2 levels of analysis here, as I've already said. First of all, human rights universality. This breaks into 1A and 1B. Bear with me. 1A, ladies and gentlemen, we do this to ensure that they don't occur again. We do this because of human empathy, the need to recognize when people are suffering that we need to go in and we need to help those people. We have this kind of common sense of, you know, they're humans, we don't like to see humans suffering and dying at the hands of other humans. We think that that's a very important reason why we go in. B, ladies and gentlemen, 1B, universality of human rights. It's a principle we stand for, it's a principle that we promote, and we say that's absolutely a principle that we need to stand by all of the time. I don't think these guys are going to have a huge amount of trouble with this kind of stuff. Second, ladies and gentlemen, enlightened self-interest is another reason why we do it. We say that effectively what happens very often, and we think Tanzania is a good example of this. Some of the debaters here might have brought that up in a previous debate before, ladies and gentlemen. We say that very often what happens is when we let these situations go on, ladies and gentlemen, we get huge destabilizing effects. For example, in Tanzania, where neighbouring ethnic conflicts are leading to refugees flooding into Tanzania, which has a very destabilizing effect, ladies and gentlemen. We think that that is hugely problematic, and we think that, like, for reasons of global stability, we often move in. It's enlightened self-interest. We don't want destabilizing effects anywhere regionally, and we certainly don't want them affecting us either, ladies and gentlemen. And that is a reason why we move in, and they need to deal with that. But before, and that is the enlightened self-interest bit. Sorry, I need to move the notes. Now, already noting that we've asked, when do we initiate these elections? Who is making the decision on this? It's either us making the decision, which totally undermines the first proposition, or We just get out as soon as we get any poll results from any two communities, and that's a problem they need to deal with. Bearing that in mind, now that we've established in point 2 why we bother going in, let's look at point 3, ladies and gentlemen. So now we know why we go in, how do we best achieve these objectives? We say we've got several levels of analysis here. First of all, we say ensuring long-term stability, ladies and gentlemen, is the way to go. We said ensuring the reasons for conflict is gone is the best thing to do. I'll take you on this.
Can you explain to me why the government of the United States and its population is better than judging when the job is done in Iraq than the government of Iraq and its population?
Yeah, absolutely I can. When they can ensure that we have a democratic system in place, when they can ensure that the values that we have, and this plays into point 3, are established. Because, you see, our duty, ladies and gentlemen, is ensuring that the civil institutions that we have that ensure our human rights are given to everyone else in the world. And we have to ensure that that is done safely, and that is done slowly, and that is done in a controlled environment, ladies and gentlemen. Because we can't stand for human rights and say human rights are great if we're not prepared to give those systems by which we benefit to other people, to allow them the opportunity to establish those systems and allow those minorities and majorities to benefit from that. That is the huge problem that you need to deal with. We need to ensure those models are in place for any election to happen. What does that mean? That means we need to decide when to vote. That means we need to ensure that we are satisfied that any minorities are protected or majorities are protected, or whatever formulation of that you want to take, ladies and gentlemen. We need to ensure that all of those things, including like separation of powers, an independent judiciary, a working fourth estate, ladies and gentlemen, are in place, and therefore we can feel satisfied that it is now time for us to pull out. The vulnerable have to at least expect this from us. This is a moral duty on us to ensure that for the vulnerable people, ladies and gentlemen. It is the least that they should be able to expect from us. And to say that we can just pull out before we ensure that this process is finished, because we have multiple elections that we can't even ensure the veracity or the independence of them, I think it's hugely problematic for their side of the house, and they need to deal with that, ladies and gentlemen. What have we told you? We've told you all of the bad problems that occur. We've asked you why do we go in the first place, and we've told you how best do we ensure that. And Mr. Casey's going to bring you some awesome analysis as well, ladies and gentlemen. For all of these reasons, we stand incredibly proud in first opposition. Thank you very much.